Hello, this is Ted Softly with an Abduction Any new patch tutorial. So, this is a game that was released back in 2016 by Cyan. They are the creators of Myst, and for all this time, we've actually never really had a proper tutorial before. So, as everyone is playing Firmament and breaking that game apart speedrun wise, I've decided to go back and make a guide for abduction. The reason being that because earlier this year, the reason being that earlier this year, someone had asked if there was a guide for the game, and as it turned out, no, actually. And it never really occurred to me to make one before. So, as everyone was breaking Firmament and I was drawing comparisons to this game, I decided, you know what? Better late than never. So, this is the guide for Abduction Any new patch. Now, before we get started, there's a couple things I need to talk about. What is new patch versus old patch, by the way? Well, if I just pause the game right here, you can see on the corner that little number 1.8.4. Now, that means that I am running the latest patch as of a couple years ago, I think. So, what exactly defines old patch and new patch? Well, the main difference is a glitch that gives us hyperspeed. So, when the game first came out, we discovered that if you held W, the up arrow, and then up on your um, controller, you would get 3 times speed. Now, this was kind of a pain to set up holding W, up, and then up on your controller. And we soon found out that in your input.ini file, you could actually change the scaling of the movement to up to 10 times speed. Although this cap hasn't been fully tested, we figured from a little bit of testing that was about 10 units for the scaling to cap out. So, what does this movement speed do? Well, to simply put it, other than making you traverse the map really fast, it actually just annihilates the game. So, in old patch, what you could do is save the game, reload the same, and as you're reloading the save, you hold W, and you could clip through pretty much any floor. The floors were just merely suggestions. This has since been patched out in new patch in multiple ways. One, you no longer get the movement speed anymore if you hold down multiple buttons, so they just added a speed cap. But they also made it to where if you added the .ini file and try to play the game, on some versions, you just literally cannot move your character at all. Also, what you just saw there is using arrow key left and right. You literally just cannot move at all. It, for some reason, breaks the game. I don't know why this change was made, especially since they patched it out, but it's worth noting if you want to run old and new patch. Another thing that was in the day one patch specifically is being able to hold Control, Shift, Alt, and then 1. And what that does is that it'll load this world, Hoonrath, at any time, no matter where you are, it'll just load you in. Which, for old patch, even though no one has done a route with that discovery yet, because, to be honest, old patch is kind of a really annoying run, even compared to new patch any percent. It is a little bit faster. And one other major difference is that some skips have been patched out. There is a glitch called node warping, which has not been patched out. And because of that, we could node warp here, this exact area, without ever touching the elevator on new patch. So the elevator will be down there. Now, if we node warp up here, what's the big deal? Well, we actually cannot get back because of this invisible wall that they added to new patch, which means we are now soft locked because there is no way of bringing the elevator back up. Speaking of elevators, in new patch, elevators are just insanely more broken. I don't know what they did to elevators, but yeah, they are way, way more broken in new patch. So before we actually get into the tutorial properly, there is still a couple of things I want to talk about. So I did talk about them adding a movement cap, but it's, I guess you could call it superstition. It hasn't been properly tested, but old wisdom for this game says that running diagonally is faster than walking forward. To me, it seems faster, barely, but I'll let you be the judge of that and decide what to do with that information. Last but not least, Obduction has some weird form of saving. So every time, or well, not even every time, but when you pause the game and you can see the circle up there, there's a chance it'll auto-save. In new patch, it is pretty consistent, so every time you do pause the game, it should come up. And when that comes up, you'll have an autosave, and you could copy this save, and that is how you make saves in this game. Now, it's pretty weird that it's done that way, but you'll get used to it eventually. And one other thing that I forgot to mention about saves is make sure you always have at least one hard save here, because if you delete every single save file, very, very weird things start to happen to Obduction when you try save and load. So just go into the game, make a save file, and then from that point forward, just use a second save file. And with that, I think there's not really much left to say for this intro, other than what I'm going to be doing for this tutorial is go over. First, I'm going to go over the world record route, and it is the harder route. But if you want to spend extra time just learning the world record route immediately, then that'll be first up in the video. And then after I go through the entire run using the world record route, I will be talking about the beginner friendly route, which is quite a bit slower. It's maybe a minute and a half at least, but it cuts out the biggest run killer in my opinion, which is why the world record route is the more advanced route, and that is the Earth Out of Bounds glitch. Alright, so let's get into the tutorial. So we want to make sure we're in free roam, everything else doesn't matter. But there is one setting that does matter. When it comes to point and click, just in case you accidentally don't swap out of it and you accidentally move, you want to make sure transition type is set to instant. So for this part, what I'm going to be doing is I am just caring about clean movement through here. That's all there is to it. The sloppier your movement is, the more time you lose.
All of our news stories.
So this part right here is where the run actually starts to matter, and this is the Earth Out of Bounds that I have been talking about. Let me just bring back my notes that I have written down. So, Earth Out of Bounds, definitely not beginner friendly. It is kind of hard to do because the timing is tricky. So, what's going on here? So, past these two trees right here, keep in mind that I am playing on Epic graphics here, so you'll see extra stuff on the ground that you might not see if you're playing on low, which is recommended. But right past these trees, there is a cutscene trigger that will lock us in place and warp us, or, well, load us into the new map. So, what we're going to do is hold W, enter the trigger, and the timing I like to use is once I hit the wall, like immediately after I hit the invisible wall, I swap to point and click mode, and that should trigger the glitch. So it is important while you're doing this, you hold W, so hit invisible wall, and once you hit the invisible wall, immediately press N. That's how I've been able to do most consistently. So let's see if I could do it. Again, even as world record holder, I still find this pretty tricky, and it takes me a while to de-rust this, and I've only just picked this up to make the guide, so I'm going to swap to point and click mode. This helps me just align things better. I personally just do this, and I'm going to hold W, and the instant I hit the invisible wall, while not letting go of W, I'm going to press N. Let's see if I could do this. First try, and what happened is that I warped backwards to this node, but the cutscene triggered, and I cannot move. And you know you did this correctly when you don't see the node appear once you swap. So what this will do is that this will actually spawn us out of bounds when we load into Hoonrath, however you pronounce it. So this is not all there is to the glitch right now. So there is something else we need to do. Right now, I am going to be holding S and then D, so back, right. And what this will do is we'll run diagonally backwards a bit, and once you see the world unload, let go, and you'll just fall right through. And that is the tricky Earth out of bounds as part of the advanced route. So, now that we are down here, what do we do? Well, you see this floating rock here, and then there's the bleeder, and then there's some trees here. We want to stand where we are kind of underneath that patch of grass and trees and stuff. So this part, it's going to take a while. We're walking to the complete opposite end of the map here. And we're just walking more and more. And this part you're going to have to be careful about, because if you're too far this way, you're going to warp to the bleeder in the next step and you'll soft lock. Too far this way, or even too far forward, you're going to spawn the gas station and once again soft lock. So this part, I don't really have a good visual cue. I just sort of feel this out, and this to me kind of feels right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the game. And you want to make a backup just in case you fail. It's always a good idea. And I'm going to reload. Now what this does will reset our node positioning. So if I were to swap to point and click mode before reloading, it will warp me all the way back to the beginning, and the glitch we just did is useless. But now that we are here with the loaded save, and this process is exactly the same as old patch, except in new patch there's one extra step. I'm going to press N, and notice how nothing happened. Press N again, and this is the difference between old and new patch. In old patch, we would have warped all the way back in bounds already, but in new patch, we're going to have to walk close enough up the side, and we'll just warp to where we, pressed N underneath. So now that we are down, or, well, I guess up here, we want to head to the generator and do the regular generator stuff. So flip this on, flip that down, move that over, and then we're going to head to the gas station. So you might think, oh, let's just do this immediately if you play the game casually, but no. What we're going to do is run by and actually look through this window. So you see this collection of license plate here? We need to look at this one, which we happen to get Rhode Island. This one right here is the solution to the tower code. So, as a refresher, at the end of Abduction, or well, earlier than that, man, it's been a while since I played casually, you need to access the tower elevator, and in order to do that, you need a license plate code. The state you need is random, but in new patch, the position of the correct state will always be this one right here, not these 9, but this one by itself. In old patch, the plates are truly randomized. You cannot look at any single plate in old patch and say, yup, that's the one. So in old patch, you just need the list of codes next to you, and you just have to enter the 3 quickest one to enter, which I'm really sorry, I forgot which 3 states were the quickest, but you just enter 3 of them. If it ain't it, you just have to reset, and that's the way old patches. In this one, we could look, we see it's Rhode Island, we take note of that, and then we want to turn the gas pump. And then this part right here is just waiting as we prime and start the engine. In old patch, there's a glitch that I was never able to do, where you could actually get the cursor stuck in this position and you could just walk away. And it's faster. It involved using like this alternate cursor mode or whatever. Again, I never was able to get it to work. So, good luck with that. But that is something to keep in mind, and something you may see in older patch runs. Now that we have the engine started and the power is back, we are going to go through Farley's house, which I will have all the codes you need in the description below, but you just enter the code. This one will always be the same. Same with the mayor's house. And then we just want to pass on through. Exit down here. And as you can see, I'm doing the diagonal movement that I talked about. And we're going to head to the factory. And at this point, we are actually over halfway through the run. Pretty incredible, right? So, in old patch, there used to be a node warp where you just stand right here, node warp, and it brought you up there. It was slightly faster, but in new patch, they decide to add a node right here, so that way you always warp to it. So, we're just going to go up here and send down the cart. Now here's a minor time save if you could get it consistently, but we could actually shoot the red laser with the blue laser right there. Just like that. So as I get out, I'm going to hold forward and then left because as you may have seen, you actually move as you leave the cart. So again, just to show you, I'm actually moving forward. So you kind of want to move and predict where your character is to get out just slightly faster. And by the way, if you cannot hit the red laser through the wall there, don't worry, just pull the cart out a little bit and then shoot it. It's a minor time loss, but it's not that big of a deal, especially when you're just starting out your run. So, here's the major difference between old patch and new patch. In new patch, we just have to flip the explosive switch on the bleeder. So, if you remember the game, story, blow up the bleeder, we could teleport to a new world. In old patch, if you tried to do this, you would see the explosion, but you would soft lock yourself. For some reason, new patch, this is all you have to do to beat the game. Literally this. Like, you don't even have to close the hood again. Like, we're done. We just need to go to the tower. But if you are playing old patch, if you look at the runs, what they do instead is, because we could flip out bounce anywhere, we just head to the tree and then we water the tree, flip out of bounds, because each heart for each world is stacked one on top of each other, with Hoonrath's heart being the very top. So you water, you out of bounds down, you water down, down, down. And then once you water the last one, you just head back to Hoonrath. So, At this point, if you watched my world record run, you might have noticed that there's something I do here with the elevator, and that's going out of bounds. So you can watch the run if you want to see that. I'm going to show you the other way. I just need stuff away from the loud waterfall for a second. I really do not know which is faster, whether going out of bounds or just running along here normally. Now, it is worth noting with the elevator, there is a way, if you keep node warping, there is a precise node warp that you could do where it will warp you to that spot right there instead of keeping you on the elevator. You'll be right there. I feel like if you could pull that off, if you could node warp while going down the elevator to right here, and then run all the way over, which is what I'm going to show you, that is the fastest method. As for out of bounds versus normal running, I think they're both about the same based on, feeling, because apparently tradition is to never time things properly. But as you can see, there. Oh, I almost soft locked myself. That would have been fun. See, right here, that's not exactly what I want to do. It just happened that way, but yeah. And by the way, that's not the precise version. There's a way where you could actually just instantly warp here. That was... But hey, that was lucky though. So, at this point we are going to run all the way over here. And again, this is just movement optimization. The only thing you could lose time on is, like, if you get stuck here, these two trees are trolls because, see, you could get hard stuck on them. So try thread the needle. And when we're up here, we're going to go through the graveyard to this warp point. And once we are through this warp point, go over this cliff, stand right here looking over the bridge here, and then node warp, which is, again, just switch to point and click mode, which is N on your keyboard by default. In old patch, you could actually reassign the keybinds. Now that we are up here, we are at the tower. And this is everyone's favorite part of the run, if you can't tell by my sarcasm. So, I don't have all the codes memorized, there's a bunch of them, but I just have a notepad document that has all the codes in them. Again, I'll link all the codes in the description. But we got Rhode Island, so that's going to be 2, 5, 8, 2, 8, 7. I just had double check. It's been a while. And this is the end of the run. We just wait for this elevator. And time ends on the explosion. And that's the advanced route for Obduction Any new patch. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's a beginner route. What is this beginner route? How does it differ? And why is it easier? And why is it a minute slower? Well, as I alluded to earlier, we don't do the Earth out of bounds because it's pretty tricky. So we're just going to enter the trigger. You could realign yourself with point and click mode if you want to, but that is all we do on Earth. So with this route, if you've been paying attention to the first section for the world record route,
Almost like
you might have thought of something you could do beginner wise that might be easier, and that involves the elevator. Yes, we are going to use the elevator to get out of bounds, and this is the beginner route. Ignore how I switch the pronunciation often. But we're going to go to the elevator, go up it, send it back down, and then flip out of bounds using the elevator. Again, if you do this route, then this part right here is just clean movement, which you should be used to by now if you made this far in the video. So we're just going to head all the way to the elevator. It's a really long walk, and as you can see, this is why this adds at least a minute and a half, maybe a minute if you're really clean about it. Send it back down. I want to node warp with that timing to get up there. Actually, let me do that again and explain it better. I know I don't use this route, but that doesn't mean I can't do a good job of explaining. So, you see this wooden platform. What we're going to do is send down the elevator, and when the wooden platform is about level with your head, you want to enter point and click mode, and that will put you above the platform going down through it. And then once you get about halfway down, you still need to do this quick enough to where there's still enough vertical space for the elevator to go down, because what we want to do is warp down there, but it's going to put us floating in air slightly, and then the elevator, since it's still moving down, is going to push us through the ground. I think that might be late. Yeah, that was late. So, you see how I didn't have enough vertical space to fully go past the second ground. I just went through the walkway. So that's what we want to avoid here. And there's also a couple soft locks here that could happen. Yeah, this is good right here. And now we went through. And at this point, the route route is exactly the same as I've shown you. And so what would happen if you destroyed the red beam and then did that out of bounds like I talked about earlier when showing off the advanced route? So what would happen? Actually, I don't think I have a good vantage point here. But what would happen is that you would actually hit the sphere, and it would actually teleport you. If you didn't know this, it will actually teleport you to the proper spot, which is right above the bleeder. So yeah, if you didn't know, the teleportation with the spheres is not a bunch of smoke screens with special triggers where they have a special trigger like, oh, you touch that, you go there. No, it actually properly does math and stuff to spawn you at the correct end of the sphere. So if you fall down the elevator and touch the sphere while the red beam is broken, you will then spawn like right above the bleeder. You'll fall through. Well, not fall through. You'll fall in the lake, and then you could get your way out with node warping. If you want to see all this, it's in my world record video from a few years ago. Um, Assuming that, I don't get a PB and start running this game again, but you could search for that video. You'll fall in the lake. You can node warp out, and that's what happens. And I think that about covers everything, actually. So, this was the long overdue Obduction Any percent tutorial. Again, more geared towards new patch, but hopefully my explanations of the glitches we've done and the differences between the two versions can help you along in the old patch. You could just take the knowledge you learned today, watch the world records of old patch, and then try to mimic that. You could always ask questions in our Discord, which I can also link down below if you ever have questions. Um, I will try my best to answer them. And there's a couple other runners that might remember a thing or two about the run that could help. The game's kind of been dormant for a little bit. So yeah, hopefully this guide will convince people to maybe pick up the game and try running it for yourself. And the game isn't really that hard to run. Yeah, the beginning glitch is kind of tricky to get down the earth out of bounds, but pretty much what I've shown you is just hitting the N key to swap navigation mode. That's all the glitches are, just timing your N presses. So, yeah, hopefully you've learned from this guide and hopefully you'll enjoy running the game. Thank you for watching.